Skylar, David Cloninger with the Charleston Post and Courier. Obviously, this thing kind of came together at a strange time. When did you first hear from Mark, and how long did it take you to make up your mind?
Well, it definitely didn't take long once it came to fruition to make up my mind. It was pretty easy for my wife and I. However, I heard from him, from Coach Current, had reached out initially, and then Coach Kingston, handled it very professionally, called my boss at the time, Jake Boss, and let him know that there was some interest, and then we continued chatting day in and day out, and then eventually got down here, about, I guess, 10 days ago for the interview, and thankfully it went well.
Yeah, Andrew Anspager from the State. What were your, obviously you've been around high-level baseball, playing at Louisville, going to the World Series, things like that, then being kind of in the Midwest. What was your view and impressions of South Carolina, kind of watching them from afar? You talked about how it didn't take long for you to take this job. Obviously, you had high impressions, but what was your impression just watching this program from a distance?
Well, like when I started coaching, it was around the time when, it was really, really rolling here with Coach Tanner, and they'd won the national championships, and almost, of course, got the third. So I'd seen it from that way, just watching on TV all the time. Then this spring, having been able to actually coach down here, and see the atmosphere live and in person was outstanding. And so I felt like I had a real good impression, and that was one of the things that, I think made it a little easier with our team at Michigan State, is them having played here, so those guys fully understood when this opportunity arose. It was something you couldn't really pass up.
Back with Joe.
Coach Meade, just what are your impressions of the staff that USC has, and I guess how do you want to get the best out of them?
Well, I've done a ton of review of just video from the returners last year, and then all of the guys who were able to throw this fall. It's going to be a young, new blood throwing this year, of course. I think that's easy to tell just from the roster, but got to see him yesterday. It was exciting just to watch him, play catch and do a little bit of work. And, got the same thing going today and then Thursday and Friday. And so, it's hard to take too much into one day, but I'm excited just to get the system rolling and see them get better day in, day out.
Colin Taylor from Gamecock Central, kind of sticking with that. How much can you learn from these off-season workouts, and how much are you going to have to learn in, the preseason scrimmages and things like that once things really start rolling in January?
Well, there is only so much you can learn in we do a lot of competitive things. We'll even mix in some stuff today just to at least try to make it as lifelike as possible. But you at least see how their body moves, how they collect themselves, how they present themselves, which I think is very important to me. To say I'm going to know who's a real dude and who's not, just playing catch, that's not going to happen. But, we're going to try to get real, inventive, and my communication is going to be constant with these guys throughout the break when they do their winter program, so that, we can all be as dialed in as possible when they get back January 16th and we start preparing for the season.
In the back, Michael Espy from ABC Columbia. I've got two questions for you. One, your staff set school records in strikeouts the last 3 years. I was wondering what the key to that has been, and if you've reached out to Jerry Myers at all since taking over.
Yes, I have reached out to Jerry, and I know he had put something out on Twitter that was outstanding, and I was more than appreciative of that. And so he and I'm trying to connect with him actually this week. You're getting a lot of info from different guys, but nobody would know the staff better than Jerry. So I'm excited to do that and appreciate, him willing to do that with me. In terms of the staffs we had at Michigan State, a lot of it, Graham Sykes, the recruiting coordinator, he and myself were fortunate to get some good arms in there. There was some good arms when I arrived. We had a lot of big physical dudes, and we just it was a perfect mesh of player and then the way I ran our system. It just so happened to work out. But in terms of trying to promote strikeouts and things like that, really only the 2016 group, that was a big message for us because we were capable of doing it. The other years, I think it was just a byproduct of the talent level and things like that we had.
John Whittle, thebigspur.com. I was wondering whether it's on the recruiting trail or whether it's competing for a spot, guys currently on the team. What are a couple of the qualities that you look for that are really important?
Well, we had this talk with the pitching staff in here yesterday about this. I'm really big on presence and how you present yourself. I think guys that carry themselves with the chest out, have the bravado, I think the good things tend to happen to them, especially as pitchers. And so we started talking about that just as recent as yesterday in that meeting. And so, guys who are confident, they carry themselves a certain way, they go about their business without screwing around. Those are the kind of guys that I certainly vibe with, but it doesn't mean that I'm not having a whole heck of a lot of fun. It's a blast to be out there, and all of the guys, not just the pitchers that I've met, all these guys carry themselves very, very well. They're a humble group from what I can tell in phone conversations, meet them in person, just texting with different guys throughout the day. And so I think they have the qualities needed to do the things that we want to do here.
Skylar, do you prefer to call pitches from the dugout that your guys will throw?
I have always called pitches from the dugout, and it's been kind of a twofold thing. One, I should be pretty good at it. I am the pitching coach, but at the same time, I've had a lot of really young catchers too over the years. So there's never been a guy that's necessarily been in for 2+ years that could fully do it. Now within that, they have full reins to shake. The catchers have full reins to shake. I want that to be something that the guys love to do. Some of the pitchers that you get around for a longer time, you start to get a good vibe that when you call a pitch and they shake, you go, okay, I know what he's shaking to and I'm fully on board. But I want them to be convicted to whatever they throw. It's not about me calling the right pitch and looking smart. It's about us throwing the best pitch and the one they're going to commit to the most. And however we get to that, it's going to be a team effort.
And with that, Skylar, coming in mid-season and not really knowing the staff, how crucial will the first 3 weeks of preseason practice be to try to get to know the guys and what they're comfortable with before you got to start throwing them out in games?
Well, those 3 weeks are huge, and they're very vital. But I think talking to them just about their style and about what they're trying to work on, that's something right now that I have to do every single day. Even when they're doing a winter throwing program on December 28th and it's 180 feet and they do a flat ground, I got to communicate with them on what they're feeling, what they think is really dialed in, what they need to improve upon. And so, I've already had multiple guys say, hey, maybe I'm working on a certain off-speed pitch. What do you think? What do you think about my grip? So it's going to be over the top amount of communication, but I think that's the only way you can get ready for February and then be ready for March once SEC time rolls around.
Hey, Richard Breen, Anderson Independent and Greenville News. From a recruiting standpoint, I've talked to some professional scouts, and some of the organizations have really honed in on the body types and the stuff profiles that they're looking for in certain athletes. From your standpoint in recruiting, do you look for body types or stuff or anything along those lines? What are your priorities?
I think one thing I've been fortunate enough to do is coach successful pitchers of many different, shapes and sizes. Zach Curtis at Middle Tennessee State led the country in strikeouts. He was 5'9", 171, and then Dakota Mekas at Michigan State 2 years ago had done the same thing, and he was 6'7", 270. So I like big, strong pitchers, but I also like small, fast-arm pitchers too. So, I think it's a case-by-case basis. Of course, in recruiting, the biggest thing we're trying to create is depth and competition across the board. And, from just the guys who are already committed here down the road, which obviously we can't talk about, but I think that's what we're establishing is depth so that you get into the 12, 14, 15th range and you still have guys that are talented enough. But I never would say that there's a certain type of arm I have to have as a pitching coach. I think my job is to adapt to the system that they have or the ability they have and then adjust the system accordingly.
Yeah, coming in at this time, can you rely on anything in your past that relates to this kind of situation where you didn't have the fall to kind of be with the team, or are you around anybody that's been like that you can lean on to kind of come in and have to accelerate the process of getting to know these guys? And then secondly, there was a handful of pitchers on this program that we counted on this spring that didn't throw in the fall. So is that kind of good, I guess, for you to kind of get a fresh set of eyes on them as they start under Coach Kingston for the first time as well?
You know, it is a very unique deal. And like when Coach Kingston and I talked on the interview, you know, there's not necessarily a handbook for that. I mean, you just got to kind of adjust a little bit on the fly. I think the number one thing is to be as prepared as possible, you know, with the information that we have, both video, communication with them, and part of it, you know, it's just got to be a little bit of a gut feel too. So, you know, for the guys who have been out, I think as long as they are healthy, you know, they'll be coming in and they'll know the system quickly. At least I hope that they will. But, you know, there's some coaches that I know that have had some late, I call it late season or October, November, you know, changes to jobs. None of them were pitching coaches, but some of them were either, you know, a head coach or a guy on the other side of the ball. So I've tried to reach out to some of those guys just to get a feel. But like I said, there's not necessarily a handbook for it. You just gotta roll with the punches and figure it out.
I know you can't talk about specific recruits, but have you gotten a chance to talk to some of the guys committed to the 1920 classes, and kind of what's been your message to them as you kind of go through this transition with them?
I have been able to talk to a large portion, nearly every pitcher for that matter, which has been great, and the excitement is big. Obviously, all those guys are excited to be Gamecocks, just as I am excited to be a Gamecock as well. So, yeah, it's been outstanding. Everybody's been very welcoming. You know, there's been nothing that's been alarming, you know, in talking to any of those guys, their families, anything like that. It's all been very, very positive.
You left, John?
I know Coach Kingston's pretty big on analytics and advanced data and so forth. What's your experience with that? How much do you look into that stuff and buy into, you know, spin rates and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I've been jumping on board with more of that stuff as well as my career has gone on. I'm excited for some of the things we'll be able to use here. Of course, some of the places that I've been at, maybe some of that necessarily doesn't fit into the budget, you know. But at the same time, what's been nice is you know, we've had some successful arms. So, you know, you'll have scouts or you'll have certain people within those organizations who have reached out to you, and they'll give you information on guys and say, you know, for example, I know this is a little outside of the analytics, but, you know, we had a guy at Michigan State who had the closest release point in the country to home plate, which also was why he had such great spin rate, and therefore he had a high swing and miss rate on his fastball. So did we have that ability to go into our office and see that information? We didn't, but it was nice that we had people that were willing to help us. So I'm excited the way Coach Kingston and the whole staff is into that, and I'm just trying to learn day by day with it as well. Thank you, guys.